Hi, I'm Milton.
And I'm Bert.
And welcome to World Africa Experience.
All right.
So, yeah, today what are we going to talk about, eh?
Well, let's go small a little bit. People are used to, sometimes you find when you stop in front of guests and you show them a small animal, they like, show us the big animals. Let's talk about it, something, common. Impala.
Impala. Wow. Okay.
Yeah?
No worries. Yeah, Impala. Well, Impala is one of the most common antelope throughout Africa, especially in Zimbabwe, and you'll be seen and heard throughout all corners and all pockets of the park, where they love to hang around in big open areas. And one amazing thing is, since it's a mixed feeder, you can also see it on an ecoton where the two different terrains, like the savanna or the trees and the grasslands where they meet. That's where they love to hang around as well, because they can switch on, and it's quite amazing.
Pretty interesting, and I love as well how gregarious they are. I've always wondered if this was a human being, this would cost a lot of money, because that one male is chasing around up to 35, 40 females.
That's quite a lot.
That's quite a lot, eh? Yeah, and I've noticed how they tend to fight a lot. At least twice a year you see them fighting. There's that the main rut, and then there's that other false rut, when they start fighting thinking females are back into estrus, but the females are just releasing a lot of hormones because they're about to give birth.
Yes.
Something pretty interesting. But impalas, they're very ubiquitous, and you see them everywhere, and you follow them a lot. You tend to learn a lot about them in terms of the males developing a dermal shield. It becomes so strong. The front legs, the horns, and it develops a very fierce look, and it starts even calling a grunt that you can easily mistake for a very big predator. It's just establishing territory. During that time, it's making sure that it's herding a herd as big as possible to make sure that the bachelors don't come in. And this is where the problem starts, because the bachelors, they are eating all the time and waiting for him to get tired. And when by the time the bachelors come in, he's busy fighting, and the other bachelors are just coming in. And the impalas, they've got what we call a baculum, so mating doesn't take too long. We're talking about 2 seconds. So they just jump in, mate. By the time he's done, in 3 days, he's so worn out, lions will just come and have a fair share. Sometimes they get attacked and they get horned right on the femoral artery, and they just go and die close to the water edges, and hopefully, they're hoping to make it. So the whole concept of Impala is pretty interesting, but it's a never-ending story on the Impala.
Indeed, yeah. Like what Albert was explaining now, is they move in two different family groups. A certain time of the year, you'd find that there is the bachelor herd, and then there is the harem herd, where there's a male in charge, of that particular group. He's been explaining about how a male has to defend his territory. So bachelor head, that's where a lot of fighting take place, because of, as young boys, we grew up doing that. We do wrestling and everything. So when they're in such a group, there's a lot of fighting, practicing fighting, so that when it comes for defending themselves in real, they have to be strong enough and know all the techniques. And sometimes, how you can differentiate the difference between the male and the female. Males possessing a pair of horns, which is made of keratin and a bone inside. So if it breaks, it won't regrow again, because keratin is that substance which makes our fingernails. So if it breaks, it won't grow again. So, but the
like
problem,
a headache.
yeah. So the problem now is if one has that broken horn, it's quite difficult for it to go and join and fight for the females, which is quite a bad thing. But anyway, there's quite a lot of things that happen, like the flamen, where a male will be very busy among the female, because they're short day breeders, impalas. There's a certain time of the year where females, they get impregnated. and there's also certain time of the year where all females, they have to give birth. Impalas, they've got a very it's not very long gestation period, about 6.5 to 7 months. And I don't know if you've heard that there's a tendency for females to give birth together for very good reasons. It's that synchronized birth. It helps a lot when it comes to protection. It's better to give it all than to do one, because that time, and that is the time where hyenas, jackals, they'll be learning to hunt. Also lions, they'll be learning to hunt. So if they all give birth together in a group within a short period of time, they can lose one, but the rest will get protected. So it's quite an interesting thing that they do have a synchronized birth. Why? It's because they all fall pregnant almost in the same period of time. They all fall in estrus, meaning time where female will get very ready for breeding. So a male, you get accommodated during that time, and he has to make sure that he's strong enough to defend his females, and he goes around and do flamen and then go through. So talking about flamen, it's also a very interesting thing. I think you can talk more about flamen.
Oh yeah, now we probably touched it on the one episode whereby because it's the female's estrous cycle coincides with the high testosterone level of the male. So the males are always doing that, whereby they see the female urinating, and then they either go and drink the urine whilst it's happening, or they wait for the urine to drop, and then they sniff on the urine, arousing the hormones straight into the palatal pits, into the nose, whereby there is what we call the Jacobson organ. All right, so in the Jacobson organ, that's where they decipher how many hormones are in the female. Is she ready for mating or not? It's not only used for breeding. It can be used for picking up if there is a stronger male than the other impala, or even if there's a sick one in the area. So it's like a little hub. It's like, say, Twitter, for example. You know, so it's a communication device that most mammals would use, except maybe some of your high-end primates. Humans, we've lost the ability to use those kind of devices with evolution. So it's pretty...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you know, in primates, it's totally different. They develop that ischio-callosities, you know, the red swollen back. That's why there's a lot of fighting that take place in impalas.
In impalas, yeah.
I've seen a very interesting thing as well during my safaris in Zimbabwe. Talking of primates like baboons, they love to play around, getting up with fidebia trees, those big acacia trees that drops the pods, which contains close to 20% of crude protein. So impala, it cannot climb up the tree to get it. So the way the baboons are fighting and playing around, it eventually drops those pods, and they will feed from the ground. So it's quite interesting.
It's almost close to symbiosis, but they can do without each other.
Yeah.
So that's a commensal relationship, I would say. Yeah?
That's right. That's right. So it's very interesting. But you know, impalas generally, they are fastidious groomers. They love grooming themselves. There is a tendency, there's a time where they groom one another, doing what you call allo grooming, where one will be facing the other direction, opposite direction, and it's good for safety, or where they'll be checking of predators. But one amazing thing is impalas, they've got what they call pectine teeth, extra comb. The bottom jaw is movable, so they're able to take some little ticks on themselves and then become very clean. That's why you see impalas, they're very clean in general.
Oh wow!
You always see them, you know.
That's
clean.
Pretty interesting. Yeah. And considering the coloration of the impala as well, like everyone always wonders where the black M at the back is. And theoretically, it's also been proven that it could be where the heat normally is centralized. And ticks loving heat, you find that they normally end up being more central around that area, which makes it easy for an impala just to turn around, and with its pectins, it just scrapes them away.
Absolutely.
So we could call them one of the cleanest
antelope,
even-toed ungulates. Yeah,
that's right. So talking about the coloration, you see impalas, they've got two different colors. It can be more, but depending on the time of the day, there's a certain time where the top part of an impala is very dark. and then the bottom part is a little bit much lighter, and then the on the flanks here, and the belly it's white. So it's all about what do you call counter shading, yeah, which is quite an amazing thing for defense mechanism. You know, although they stay in an open area. All right, stay tuned. We're gonna be back shortly and proceed with Impalas. We've been talking about Impalas. You know, I think we're gonna tackle a little bit on how they defend themselves, since it's an animal also that prefers to hang around in an open area. So in general, animals they do have their different ways of defending themselves. You know, we talked on a different episode about zebras, the way they do it, elephants, buffaloes, but impalas in particular, they have a tendency. They're very vigilant in any way that. If there is a predator that approaches from a different angle, either a cheetah or a lion or anything, or even a bird of prey that will be focusing on little youngsters, there is always what we call anti-predator tactic, where they have a tendency of jumping in different directions. That confuse a lot to animals that are not very well focused when they are doing their hunting, having a focused hunting technique. But of course, you know, later on, animals like cheetah, they can wait a little bit and get into elevated areas and then pick up one, and then it will go for it. But on the anti-predator tactic, it's very interesting that if you look at impalas with the different coloration which we're talking about, at the back legs, they do possess the black tufts on the back, on the hind legs. They do conceal what you call metatarsal gland. It is a very important thing for olfactory communication, because these days we do have a lot of ways of communicating ourselves. If you go probably shopping, and kids these days, they've got cell phones, they'll call you, "Dad, I'm here." But how will they do that, you know, since not all of them are able to communicate that in the way we think it's good. So the anti-predator tactic, when they jump, they secrete some pheromone, which at a later stage, all of them, they will come back in the same area, because they have a tendency of hanging around in a home range, and overlapping area, which will be good for breeding, feeding, and also drinking. So it plays a very important role when it comes to defending themselves and relocating one another because of their olfactory senses. It's same applies to what Albert was talking about, the phlegm, also referred to venom nasal, through the airborne pumped into pituitary gland, going all the way there for sensing. So it's very interesting.
Pretty interesting, eh? So survival is everything, but I've noticed as well speed is the object when it comes to impalas, because they can. I wasn't chasing the impala, just to make myself clear, but I was on a highway and this impala came in front and then it was running, and I was doing 100 kilometers an hour, right? And then I had to slow down, obviously slowly, because I was driving a truck. I matched its speed. Next to me, it was doing 80 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, they're very fast. Yeah, they're pretty fast.
But they look so brittle, eh?
Yeah.
Which is something quite interesting. But then you find that lions will probably struggle to catch them.
Yeah,
at that amount of speed.
Yeah, lion is not the, you know, like it's not, I would say they do struggle a lot of time trying to hunt them. But of course, depending on time of the day. But they get preyed upon a lot by cheetahs and wild dogs. You know, during the hottest part of the day, you know, wild dogs, they'll go for a persistent chase and they'll eventually get it. Yeah. But anyway, they're very good, you know, in defending. Probably one will get knocked out, so not like what happens in groups like wildebeest, where a lion will kill 3 or 4 because they'll all present themselves with
right
one
there.
dance. Yeah,
that's quite interesting. Yeah, but I was reading this the statistics, which we're actually saying about less than 4% of those baby impalas actually make it through because of their breeding habit, whereby when the big males are fighting, the sub-adult males are busy mating at the back, and the weak genes sometimes don't make it. I've been lucky. I've witnessed a martial eagle picking up a baby impala. It just came down, picked it up, but by picking it up, they break the backbone. It dies on impact, and then it just flew right into the tree. A martial eagle is probably one of the strongest birds of prey that you get in southern and East Africa. It's also the biggest, on the wingspan.
The biggest, yes, the biggest.
Looking at about 2.5 meter wingspan on a martial eagle, so quite a strong bird.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So it's very sad to see a little one going, but it's nature.
No, but I'm a sucker for marshals, eh?
Yeah, martial eagles. Yeah, they can take. You know, size of a goat. You know, something up to about 10 kilogram. It can be taken by a martial eagle. So yeah, it does happen a lot. So predation, you know, is something which animals they cannot avoid. You know, so impalas they, you know, during the day they love to be in an open area, and later afternoon they have a tendency of relaxing under the shade, which also helps a lot when it comes to digesting their food, because they are ruminants. You always see them chewing the cud and facing different directions. At the same time, it plays a very important role just to see who is coming around. So, and then they visit water holes time to time. But early in the morning as well, they love feeding on those new shoots, because they also get a lot of moisture in there. I've also seen impalas chewing soft bones, also a practice of osteophagy, just to supplement the calcium, which is a great thing.
Something quite interesting.
Quite interesting, yeah.
No, like I said, I was just thinking about this one incident whereby a lot of people, as a guide, I don't like putting emotion into wildlife, you know. But this one day, we were just driving in Wange, and then we stumbled upon some vultures. And they were feeding off a baby impala. But then just a little bit further away, behind a tree, was a mother, what looked like the mother, just hiding, but it was staring like this. Do you think it meant something? Because everyone was obviously crying, and except me.
Yeah, there's nothing really what a female can do. It's all about individual defense mechanism, which will eventually happen, kicks in. That's why they have ability to jump different directions. All of them say, no, just look for somewhere where you can hide, and later you reform. And by using those fetlocks or metatarsal glands, olfactory, they will eventually come together. But coming to distribution, you know, it's amazing that I've encountered black-faced impalas. I've encountered a black impala itself, just a recessive gene, which is melanistically challenged, and it does happen a lot. And it's just good, you know. Among the group, one impala will just be black or black-faced. I've seen them in the Namib Desert, but here in Zimbabwe as well, we have a couple of pockets in the national parks, national parks and private game reserve, where you get the black impala, which is just a recessive gene. Yeah. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. Someone was telling me that they actually witnessed a female impala with horns. I don't know if you ever read about it.
Oh yeah, that was I believe 1986 in Nyamepe camp. A female impala was seen. Such a door was seen on that section. So it's not only that males they have horns, but sometimes we guides now, we encourage our guests as well, when you get to animals like impalas or any animal, proper use of binoculars from head to toe, from head to tail, just to check the details, and then eventually it was feeding, it was suckling. So there was obvious reasons where we could see that was the female impala carrying horns. Wow,
that's pretty interesting, eh? Yeah. And just before we finish up on that, I just wanted to, I don't know if you've encountered that way. Well, my uncle used to always say, well, we are very connected to impalas, and we only look at impalas if we know we're going to have a good year of rains or not. Is it going to be a drought by the amount of babies born, or if there are no babies born at all? And as a guide, I've been looking into it, and I actually thought that it made so much sense. You know, we had a drought a few years back, and the numbers were very, very little, you know. 2 years ago, we almost didn't have impalas until a very later stage. So how true is it that they can actually prolong their gestation, or they don't give birth at all in the case that it's going to be a very heavy drought?
Yeah, you know, prolong. It's not going to be that long because when a female is due, is about to give birth, it has to. But as though I believe forecasting rain, that's through the master control brain of the hypothalamus, it can also happen that there is a good season. And I believe as well, like the same story which you're telling me, I heard it as well that way back, some farmers also used to rely on those animals to do their preparations, just be seeing quite a number of youngsters getting dropped. It does happen. But you know what, it's something which we cannot put, we're going to say 100% that they can prolong for a month, because the weight of an animal, that will be a female giving birth to if it was supposed to be 2.5 kilograms, and if it comes 5, in human beings there'll be cesarean taking place. Yeah. So it's not that long, and it's not something which can best and say definitely does happen. Yeah,
it's a theory.
Yeah, it's a theory. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, we'll look at places where we can find impalas the most.
All right, great.
All right,
stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Thank you. Welcome back to Wild African Experience. All right, we're talking about impalas. I think these creatures, you can find them almost everywhere. When it comes to, we were talking about the territories. Maybe let's talk about territories and home range. You know, the way they mark their territories and use home range.
Yeah, that's pretty quite interesting, because being ruminants, something that I've also find interesting is that they are very water independent, so they make more of pellets. But the males, they've got that exaggerated stretch that they make when it's territorial season, and they urinate right close to the ground, and then they tend to put their droppings right next to their urine. Have you noticed that? And then they do it in different places, but then the males, the females, will start dropping in particular areas, forming what we would call middens. All right, and these middens, well, midden is actually pretty much in British, it's a sewer, so it's like a area of droppings. But the theoretical part of it, you would never understand it. You would start wondering why impalas are doing this. But then we've started looking into it, and we've come up with a theory that maybe they're just fertilizing specific areas of their home ranges, so that when the first rains come, they've got the nicest green grass in that area, so that the females can have enough milk to sustain their little ones. What do you think about that?
That's amazing, yeah.
Pretty interesting.
And you can, you're able as well to tell the difference between a male and a female when it comes to dropping of the pellets, where females, they have a tendency of squatting very close to the ground. So the pellets have a tendency of being pellets being together and clustered. And males, because they don't really care a lot, so they just drop as they go, so the pellets tend to be scattered. And yeah, you often see the males checking around. That is where the name, we don't believe in a lot of scientific, but if they mean something, it's very good to talk about it, like their scientific name, the Epicyrus melampus. Epicyrus meaning a high raised horn. Melampus also referring to what we're talking about, the metatarsal gland. But I've realized that as well, impalas, it's an animal which get accommodated a lot by a lot of browsers, because either browsers or grazers, it's being a mixed feeder. It's amazing for them to be able to switch off just to grazing or browsing. If there are more kudus browsing that area, and they feel like there's change of taste, the tanning taking place, they can switch on to grazing, and or vice versa, they can switch on to browsing, so that can get accommodated, and it would be all good safety numbers. Oh wow! Yeah,
something I found quite interesting, because even on a level whereby there's a conflict between domestic animals and impala, I've noticed that they are so conservation orientated. You know, maybe it could be because of them being too wild. I've noticed goats have a tendency of jumping up on a little bush, and they start eating it from the core, which stunts its growth. But impalas never do that. They always raise their heads and they start plucking right from the bottom. giving the bushes a nice shady kind of growth, which is what is needed for
the lateral line, yeah.
which is quite something that I've always noticed quite interesting.
Lovely. Yeah, so I think when it comes to distribution, impalas, they're everywhere.
Pretty much
everywhere, and it's also one of those animals like what you've mentioned earlier on, that you end up giving it names because they're very common. You always see them in every corner of the bush. But in general, I would say don't take it for granted. Take your time with these animals. Use your binoculars and just seeing, looking at it takes, and you would see quite a lot of things. And sometimes as they walk as well, there will be disturbing bit of insect, and seeing those birds like fork-tailed drongos following them because they'll be taking those insects which are being disturbed by the animals that walk. So it's quite interesting just to take your time looking at on those animals. It's quite a great thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how the ecology emerges.
Yeah, good.
Well, on that note,
see you next time.